Okay, we're going to talk about saber and conocer today, the to know verbs. We already talked about conocer a little bit in the last chapter. We'll talk a little more today. So first you have saber and how it's conjugated. The first person is irregular. It's yo sé. Then it goes to being a regular verb, ER verb. Sabe, sabe, sabemos, sabéis, saben. So sé, let's just go back to look at this real quick. Sé has an accent here. Make sure that you have the accent. Otherwise, you can confuse it with another word, which is a pronoun, which we may or may not talk about before the end of this class. But when it is I know, you need to keep that accent there. Okay, so saber is to know a fact or to know information. For example, sabemos que Rodolfo y Luisa son estudiantes. Here are their student IDs. So we know that they are students. This is a fact that we know about them, okay? So that's why we say sabemos. We know that they are students. This is a question. ¿Sabes los días de la semana? The days of the week are a piece of knowledge, a fact. And that's why we use sabes when we ask the question. ¿Sabes los días de la semana? Yo sé el número de teléfono de Consuelo. I know Consuelo's telephone number. So again, a piece of information is her phone number, and so we're going to use the verb saber. When you use saber with an infinitive, that's a verb, as you remember, to know how to do something. So look at this cartoon. Ellos saben bailar muy bien. They know how to dance very well. Yo sé tocar la guitarra. I know how to play. Tocar is to play. La guitarra, the guitar. ¿Sabes cocinar? So we're asking, do you know how to cook? And los niños no saben nadar. Nadar is to swim. So this is saying the children do not know how to swim. So again, when you have saber plus the infinitive, it is going to be you know how to do something. And you see here that conocer is never followed by an infinitive. So that's one clue to know that if you have an infinitive, then this is going to be saber. Saber is often followed by a question word, which is conocer is never followed by a question word. So what do we mean by question words? We know, we remember them like who, what, when, where, how. So quién is who. Sabemos quién es Plácido Domingo. We know who Plácido Domingo is. And in case you don't know who Plácido Domingo is, he is a very famous opera singer. And he is from Spain. ¿Sabes dónde está la oficina de correos? Do you know where? So dónde, again, here we have a question word. Do you know where the post office is? Okay. And no sé cuándo sale el tren para Tegucigalpa. So cuándo is when. Another question word here. I do not know when the train to Tegucigalpa leaves. Sale. Remember to leave. We learned that in last chapter. Salir. So no sé cuándo sale el tren para Tegucigalpa. Saber is also used when we know something from memory. So, for example, Abuelita Marta sabe el himno nacional mexicano. She knows by heart the national hymn of Mexico. And there she is singing it. So, we have conocer. We talked about its conjugation last chapter. The first person is, again, irregular. Conozco. Remember the ZCO. That was a very irregular one. The rest of the verb is conjugated regularly. Conoces, conoce, conocemos, conocéis, conocen. So it's only the yo form that is irregular. Conocer is to know a person or to be acquainted or thoroughly familiar with a person, place, or thing. So you see here, this woman is trying to make sure that these two people know each other. María, conoces a Pablo, ¿verdad? So María, you know, you're acquainted with Pablo, right? ¿Verdad means truth, but in this context it would mean right. So you'll see a difference between saber and conocer in these sentences. Yo sé quién es Plácido Domingo, pero no conozco al señor Domingo personalmente. So again, I know who Plácido Domingo is, but I don't know Mr. Domingo personally. I don't know him. I couldn't walk up to him and say hello. He wouldn't know me. So you know who he is. That's a fact. You know information about him. You know who he is. You could recognize his picture and so forth. But you do not know him. You're not acquainted with him. Sabemos dónde está Tegucigalpa, pero no conocemos la ciudad. Now here we have a case where we use conocer with a city, and that is a fairly common use of conocer. So I know where Tegucigalpa is, or we know where Tegucigalpa is, but we're not acquainted with, we're not familiar with the city. We've never been there. We don't know, what's there because we've been there and we're familiar with it. And then the last one is, Julia sabe que Rigoberta Menchú recibió el premio Nobel, pero no conoce sus obras. Now this is it's widely used, but maybe you won't use it as much, but this is a correct usage where we know, Julia knows that Rigoberta Menchú received a Nobel Prize, but she isn't acquainted with her works. So obras are works. Rigoberta Menchú is a writer and human rights activist from Guatemala. She has fought for indigenous rights there for the people in Central America for years, and she did receive the Nobel Peace Prize, I believe. And but so in this sentence, we know who she is. We know that she received the Nobel Prize. We know facts about her, but we're not acquainted with her works. We haven't read her books, basically. And that